Want to find your seat for the event of your choice but can't get one that fits your desire or your budget? Well, my friends, SeatGeek has you covered. SeatGeek is the official sponsor of the Snake Sports Talk Show. With a list of over hundreds of events to choose from, SeatGeek will assure you that you won't miss your seat with the amazing view of your choice at the most affordable price. Whether it's looking for your best seat in the house of your favorite sports team, finding live concerts to get you closer to your favorite artist, or enjoying your spot at your favorite live shows, comedies, and more, SeatGeek has it all just for you. Go online to SeatGeek.com or download the app on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store. And as a special offer before checkout, use promo code SNAKESPORTS and save yourself $20 off of your purchase of your first ticket, and experience why SeatGeek is the most trusted ticketing app for your next event. Remember, that's SeatGeek.com and download the app on your phone with promo code SNAKESPORTS for $20 off and find your seat with SeatGeek.
And now, broadcasting live from Las Vegas, the Snake Sports Talk Show with Jake Silva starts now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time again here on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Happy Friday to all of you guys, wherever and however you may be watching and listening. Thanks for making us a part of your evening as we are live on all platforms, Roku, iHeartRadio, and all social medias known to man, to like, follow, subscribe. Keep you up to date on future and past shows. Wow, what a week. We've got ourselves the season finales of NHL and, of course, NBA playoff action underway. Stanley Cup playoffs start right around the corner. I am super excited about the Stanley Cup playoffs. Had great interviews, of course, throughout this week. I've got even more that's going to be ready to roll for you guys next week. You do not want to end up missing out on that. Got potentially some really good ones. This is draft week, of course, for next week. I'm super excited. I'm going to be popping a seat. And I really am going to be enjoying this draft night. So let's start with this. So I know Miami fans are probably sick of me. But listen, I love you guys. I love being in Miami. Beautiful bikini weather every single day. It's sunny. It's 75. You're getting a glorious tan on. I mean, I get it. There's no place like Miami and down up in South Beach, but let's be honest about a few things. First of all, this team without Jimmy Butler is completely different. Now, as of right now, you'll probably end up getting past the Chicago Bulls because I did have the Heat losing that first game against the Sixers. And then they were going to end up playing the Chicago Bulls, and they were going to beat them, but then they were going to be outlasted by Boston. So the thing you got to understand about Miami, I think this relationship with Jimmy Butler is over. I don't really necessarily see him staying long in Miami, even though I've loved a lot of their players between him and Bam Adebayo and Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. But I just don't think this relationship is honestly going to last this long. I think this is where they're going to start to part ways. Now, the hard part is for Miami, you're now losing Jimmy Butler for multiple weeks. Not a good sign. Not a good sign. And you don't have that pivotal leader that's basically there to controlling the floor, controlling a lot of his guys, and really kind of getting him up to speed. That's hard. I don't blame them. But when you've got to be honest and real about one thing, With Miami without Jimmy Butler, they are only winning at the league minimum. They're not winning any more games without Jimmy Butler. I like Bam Adebayo, and I do think he's a very good player, but you're going to tell me that you're going to end up trusting the weight of the franchise on Tyler Hero or Duncan Robinson or a lot of their young kids? I wouldn't. Think about it this way. If you would have thought of Jimmy Butler at the time when he was in Philadelphia, when they had Joel Embiid, they had Ben Simmons, this team would have dominated without Ben Simmons. If they had not lasted this long with him, with Jimmy and with Joel Embiid, this is arguably probably one of the best defensive and if not one of the best scoring teams in the Eastern Conference, not named the Boston Celtics. But you are getting fierce leadership from Joel Embiid, yet he did not look his best, and that's okay. I understand that. Sometimes players that come back from injury takes them a little bit of time. They got to basically get their conditioning up, and they got to be well rested. So to me, Joel Embiid, and I knew the Sixers were going to end up outlasting against the Miami Heat. Even though the Heat gave them fits, totally get it. But at the same time, too, the Heat were not going to be lasting this long. So they dropped the game, and they're going to honestly win against Chicago, but they are not lasting in a 7-game series against Boston. I think this thing will be wrapped up in 5. That's my personal opinion with it because Boston just has the size. They have the scoring efficiency, and they've got the stars. Unfortunately for Jimmy Butler's injury, it's not going to be good. I think Miami's really going to miss him. You'll tell by the way that they play. So Miami, I think you're going to have to come to a huge decision on this in the offseason, but I just don't see, I really, really, really don't see Jimmy Butler just staying there in Miami. I really, really don't. I think if you honestly are going to end up taking some players, Jimmy Butler will be the one guy available. I just think he's kind of tired of this now, and he'll end up going on to the next one. Okay. Stanley Cup playoffs are heating up, and I'm really excited about it. One good friend that's watching this show, Mike Harvey, Kucherov is an MVP in my opinion, but media seems determined to give McKinnon a Lifetime Achievement Award. Playoffs are going to be fire either way. And here's the thing that I look at with the Stanley Cup playoffs is that there are many, many stories that are amongst it. Now, you've got Nathan McKinnon, you've got Connor McDavid, and you've also got Nikita Kucherov. You've got many stars that are amongst it. So the thing I will break down about this, why is this? And if you look at all these teams, and I'm going to have my Stanley Cup playoff bracket here in the bottom half of the hour. You don't want to end up missing out on that. But you got Winnipeg, you got Vancouver, you got Toronto, and you got Edmonton. You got 4 Canadian teams, which means there's a possibility either of those 4 could make it all the way far. I will tell you this, it's not going to be Toronto. It probably will not end up being Vancouver. Not sure. I'm leaving the window open for Winnipeg, but it might not be them. So what does this mean now for the Edmonton Oilers? Well, here they are in the playoffs again. The Oilers did not end up starting hot all throughout the season. Then they got into a 16-game winning streak. And Zach Hyman, people think he's overrated, but yet he scored 50 goals this season. They needed a pivotal offensive factor, and they found one with Zach Hyman. But this has to be the year for Edmonton. Because if you look around in the Western Conference, the only team that's going to give you fits are the Dallas Stars with their really good defense. Vegas, when everybody is healthy, the hard part about that is what's the consistency level. It may not be the same like it was last season. And you got booted from them in the second round. Vancouver, I think they're pretty nice. They've got a pretty lucky matchup. I'm not going to say lucky. I think they got a pass. They ended up getting Nashville in their first round. I think they trounced on them in the first round. But then you've got Colorado and Winnipeg, and who knows? That might be that might be a bloody war matchup in 7 games between the two of them because you're trying to get consistency from goaltending. I already know what I'm getting with both offenses. That's not the problem, but clutch defenses is what's going to be everything. And Edmonton, you got a cookie game against the Kings. So Edmonton's going to start out the gate on fire, ready for anything and determined. I mean, if you look at Connor McDavid, he's pissed. He wants this so bad. If you recall, just like with what Wayne Gretzky went through, and the funny thing is, Wayne Gretzky had a similar track record like Michael Jordan. What do I mean by that? So you guys recall early in MJ's career, how when he didn't have Scottie Pippen, he was having such a difficult time getting past Isaiah Thomas, Detroit Pistons, Detroit Bad Boys. They were throwing everything, and especially when you had, Chris Lambier, like there was so many players that just threw a lot of their physical game at Chicago. But once you paired him up with Scottie Pippen and you give him a coach and Phil Jackson, MJ's career was everything. But yet he was very polarizing. Connor McDavid, Wayne Gretzky. Gretzky, out the gate, we knew was great. Who was giving them fits all throughout it in Gretzky's early career? The New York Islanders. 4P. That Isles team, just like Detroit, was pissing them off. And that's ultimately where they had to shape up the right guys in every single position. That's where you had Mark Messier, Grant Furr. You also had Paul Coffey. This Oilers team was determined and destined to win. And eventually they did. Once they got that Stanley Cup, Wayne Gretzky's career was solidified right from there. But early in his career, like MJ, where he had trouble with the Detroit Pistons, Gretzky had the same similar problem when it came to the New York Islanders. And both of them are very polarizing players, polarizing former athletes, yet still entertain us. I feel like Connor McDavid, not exactly the similar road, but the driving force and the determination and the factor is the same. He's pissed, and you could see it on his face. You could just see how Connor McDavid wants to be in the Stanley Cup final so bad, but we know that with as far as his pairs, I mean, he's got the best duo with Leon Draisaitl. Zach Hyman, by the way, 50 goals this year. He's finally come up, and who knows what happens with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. They gave him a contract extension, and sometimes I get a little bit of back and forth. The past year was arguably his best year, and I think he ended up taking another step forward. But when does all of this start to collectively come together? Listen, the Stanley Cup final is not the easiest matchup at all. Winning the Stanley Cup is the heaviest championship outside the Super Bowl, outside of the World Series, and outside of the NBA Finals. Ask anybody how easy, how simple it is to win the Stanley Cup. I'm going to tell you, nobody will have a response to that. People will say it is not that easy. You're getting socked in the face on a daily basis every night. Body checked. You're also getting very much contested with the puck. Anytime that you've got to end up moving around on the ice, offensively to generate shots on goals, to end up scoring goals on top of all of that, and then you're playing defense where you're having to block shots anywhere that you are when you're not a goaltender. And goaltenders go through this all the time. The Stanley Cup final, the Stanley Cup playoffs, all in all, are by far the most entertaining playoffs I think we'd seen. Now, and this is outside of the NFL, but you're getting fights, you're getting hyper aggressive scoring, and you're also getting arguably one of the best defensive plays. So this is going to be an interesting Stanley Cup playoffs. But I have my bracket. Can't wait to share it with some of you guys. It might take you guys, it might surprise many of you. But I have full confidence in this. I don't think that there's honestly, there will be some shocks. Don't kid yourself. There's going to be some shocks to everybody in this playoff. But I think it is definitely a loaded playoff. Many teams that are on the seats, that are determined, that want to end up getting to the final. This is the road to do so. Vegas is the defending champs, and they've got Dallas. I'm not sure how they're going to favor out with them, even though in the regular season, they were 3-0 against them. Who knows? We know Winnipeg's kind of gave Colorado some fits. So who knows what's going to happen there. But you're going to get hyper-aggressive scoring. You're going to get elite goaltending. And you're also going to get really good defenses, and you're going to get an awful lot of fights and checks. That's what you're going to get with the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's finally here. Excited about it. Can't wait to showcase the bracket. All right. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, the Arizona Coyotes. Final game. Going to be breaking that down. Plus, the Arizona Cardinals. Or, my bad, the Washington Commanders. I think we finally have an idea of who the Commanders are taking and should take. Lots more up on that as well right after the break. All right, folks. Well, the Stanley Cup playoffs is heating up. And you know what else? The sports books at BetUS is heating up in a big way. How are you guys not taking advantage of the opportunity? Daily contests every single day. By the way, there's contests with all the odds, potential Stanley Cup champions. They're out now. Go and get your picks in now. Because start of the weekend, this is where it all comes down to this. Stanley Cup playoff lines, NBA playoff lines, all online, and also Major League Baseball action as well for all of you guys, all online at BetUS.com. Arguably one of the best sporting books in 30 years. When you put $50 down in your deposit or more, BetUS will give you 200% in bonuses with 30 risk-free bets to keep you in the action. And also, check out some of the most amazing casino games as well from both our nation and international casino play. All of them to your favorite liking. That's all here on BetUS.com. BetUS, where the game begins.
Listen up, sports fans. Your favorite sportsbook, BetUS.com, is back for our 28th year of NFL action. With the industry's biggest sign-up bonus of up to 200%, BetUS offers our members the opportunity to cash in on all your favorite sports, including NFL, NBA, MLB, and more. We've also got hundreds of new casino games, including the coolest new European slots, and our live dealers are waiting for you at the table. Sign up at BetUS.com today to get into the action. BetUS, where the game begins.
Check out the Con Man live on the Sports Corner, coming to a screen near you, giving you the greatest stories from basketball legends you've never seen before. Sharing their glory, building the toughness, and how they show off their swag. But only one man knows all that, and that's the Con Man. Join Michael Conceição, the Con Man at the Sports Corner, Fridays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Looking for a show with the best takes and opinions? Want a show with the best coverage around the world of sports? Jam-packed with an all-star interview lineup? Then the best place to find it all, sports and entertainment, is right here. Join Jake Silva on the Snake Sports Talk Show, presented by SeatGeek and BetUS. Weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 Pacific on Sports Wave Network.
Don't lose your seat today when you sign up at SeatGeek.com, finding your seat for some of the best actions, all available now. Your next sporting event, live concert with your favorite artists, and so many other shows. When you download it also on your mobile device through Google Play and the App Store, and when you do at checkout, use promo code SnakeSports for $20 off of your purchases. So enjoy your time and don't lose your seat with SeatGeek today. All right, so the Washington Commanders basically have told everybody, we have an idea. We are picking at the number 2 pick. So it seems to me there's full confidence right now in the building with the Commanders. You already kind of have the idea they are going to take quarterback in this selection. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about this. And I think it's pretty clear. So to me, I think when it comes to the Commanders, I've said it before and I will say it again. Their offensive line was ranked 32nd in the league. The offensive line was atrocious. Now, it also accounts a lot for how many times that Sam Howell's been sacked. And yet he just got traded to Seattle. But you also you got to be amazed by how big this draft class literally is. I mean, there's so much power in moves that you honestly would have never saw coming is what's so incredible. So Sam Howell no longer on the Commanders, now with the Seattle Seahawks. I think he'll have a better upbringing in Seattle than he would with Washington. Washington didn't really give him a true fair fight, no matter how many times he had gotten sacked. And I think he will definitely produce with Seattle even after Geno Smith. But to the point with the Washington Commanders, I know a lot of people have done a lot of mock drafts. I will have my third and final mock draft on Monday. You don't want to end up missing out on that show, and I've got a great guest that could be coming on as well. So my third and final one, and I feel very confident that I believe that this is honestly what it's going to look like. So, but the Commanders, you got to take a choice. Jaden Daniels or Drake May. The clear pick for Chicago was Caleb Williams. We all knew that. After that, at the number 2 pick, now a lot of people had mentioned they were willing to take phone calls and listen in. But they are not trading that pick. I think you already kind of know that. But in all honest perspective, Jaden Daniels to me feels a lot more of a sure-side pick than Drake May. I've told many people, and kudos to my good friend of mine who had produced a lot of really good film, does great breakdowns with his network. I mean, it showed a lot of truths. Drake May has a tendency to hold on to the football way too long. Whereas for Jaden Daniels, he's more elusive, throws the ball accurate, and at the same time, he just kind of has that Lamar Jackson feel. Funny story about this. There was a time, and I don't know if this was last year's offseason or the year before, but there were buzzing talks before the Baltimore Ravens gave Lamar Jackson the bag. That they said the Commanders and the Dolphins would be interested if both sides could not come to an agreement that they would be willing to trade to acquire, then sign Lamar Jackson. So Washington tried this attempt. And I feel like now, in this draft, here's the opportunity. Adam Peters has looked for talent left and right since he got into the building. Dan Quinn, you give me a capable defense, a strong one that I can work with, and I'll have full confidence in how the offense is going to end up playing out. And Cliff Kingsbury is running this offense. So who knows how this will shape up? But you know what's great about this? Many people are not really talking a whole lot about the Commanders with how interesting they will be in the NFC East. They are not going to be that kind of team that's going to get pushed around. They're not going to be that kind of team that's going to be a shell of themselves. This is trying to poke at many of the Bears that were there. That's the Eagles and the Cowboys. The Giants, you'll play them twice a year, and maybe you may end up getting a clean sweep. Maybe you split. But the Giants, with Daniel Jones, I don't see that being that way. The Eagles, in some ways, kinda. But most of it is against the Cowboys. You know how completely undressed Washington was against Dallas? And this is also with Dan Campbell's defense. Now, he's got his defense. He's got his guys. Also ended up acquiring a lot more. And that's because there's a lot of trust in this building. Once you got new ownership with the Josh Harris group, you got the smart GM, you got arguably, I think, a very much an alpha coach, and you've also could potentially get the trustworthy quarterback in Jaden Daniels. A guy that's elusive, a guy that throws accurate, a guy that can escape danger in the pocket, and you could fix the O-line along the way in the draft. But you get that quality franchise quarterback piece. It means everything. And think about it. You already have really good weapons outside of tight end. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Austin Eckler, Brian Robinson, and you've also got to fix up that offensive line. I think that is what's going to be key about Washington in this draft, because the second they got that number 2 pick after Caleb Williams, that is going to be the pick that everybody, I think, will see coming. I mean, Drake May, good kid. Many people have given him compliments like he's a Justin Herbert. But here's the thing. Herbert's not holding on to that ball very, very long. Drake May, in order to keep up into this league, you got to start thinking very fast. You got to have quick-minded decisions. I'm not sure if he's able to do that in Washington. In New England, you'll have at the very least, an average offensive line. It's something. And then you could build your offensive weapons along the way. But you got your star quarterback, because you're going to need to have a star quarterback to compete with Josh Allen and with the Dolphins, and even with the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. So the Patriots may not be there yet, but if they end up getting their franchise quarterback, they're going to have to start, really protecting him, giving him some reasonable weapons, and not have to feel like that he's on a catty corner. So to me, I think this is the sure-sighted pick for Washington. Jaden Daniels makes all the sense in the world. Feels a lot like a Lamar Jackson-esque type player because he's able to be elusive. He could throw very accurately. The ball release is a lot better. But I also do think, if you put a few pounds up on him, maybe, just maybe, he may not end up getting trucked really hard like he was in the SEC. There were a lot of really good edge rushers and linebackers and defenders and even some safeties that are coming at you at 100 miles an hour, and you're not prepared for it. That's the only thing that I'm concerned with Jaden Daniels. When he gets hit that hard, there's often ball released. And that's where fumbles happen. I think that if you put on a few pounds, stay elusive, stay strong, I think he has that. I think he has that capability and that chance. And in a division where you've got Jalen Hurts twice a year, who kind of plays a similar game, but he also does throw a better ball. Then you've also got, the Cowboys, which who knows what happens with Dak and with Micah Parsons and with CeeDee Lamb. But then you got the Giants' pass rush with Dexter Lawrence, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeau. So which means he's gonna be tested in many ways. But if he passes the test, think about what the future will be for Washington. And Washington fans will finally get that breather that they have deserved for a very long time. I just think this is a very good sure shot pick. That's me. I think honestly, this is one that I would not even consider passing up. Nuh-uh. Not unless if you've got teams that are trying to give you bargain deal. I think if you're Washington, you stand your ground and you end up taking the one that you know is going to mesh to be a franchise quarterback for the near future. Time now for the hot press.
This is the hot press.
All right, so some news all around. As you know, we're getting geared up for the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs. So as of right now, we got our scores. The Miami Heat are on top of the Chicago Bulls right now, 59-44 with 7 minutes to go. But some news stories. We're going to get here over to the NFL. So interesting stuff going along the way. The LA Chargers and Joe Ortiz ended up vocalizing some thoughts onto the draft. Now, the Chargers have a very, very interesting pick at number 5. Interestingly enough, we'll see exactly with what the Chargers and Jim Harbaugh and Joe Ortiz end up doing. But there was questions about whether or not if the Chargers would trade down their pick. Now, Joe Ortiz said yesterday the Chargers aren't interested in a fair trade for the number 5 pick in next week's draft. And ended up saying it, I quote, "They have to make it attractive for us to move away from those players. The whole, it's a fair trade. It's a wash. I don't think that's a trade that we are interested in." He also ended up elaborating more. "We believe we have the first pick of the draft. I know there's going to be 4 picks that go before us, but we believe that. We know it's the 5th pick, and people are going to be trading on that scope, but it's got to be a good value for us. And does it have to be blown away? What is blown away? I don't know the answer to that." So, as of right now, you already know who the first 5 picks are: the Chicago Bears, the Commanders, the Patriots, the Cardinals, and then there's the Chargers. So, as you know, there are 3 of the 4 that may end up taking quarterback, but Arizona, they are listening to phone calls about that number 4 pick as well, because Minnesota is the one team that's got 2 picks there in that first round between the 11th and the 23rd, and they may expect a first-round pick by next year. So this will be interesting to kind of see, because I can already kind of see, Caleb Williams already getting taken, Jaden Daniels getting taken, Drake May. I think by this point, you keep your eye out on Minnesota, because if that becomes the trend, Minnesota will be doing any kind of dire need for them to go and take a quarterback. The Giants are also in that position where they may end up taking a quarterback as well. So there's a lot of this rumor buzz. However, this feels like it is the biggest advantage for the Chargers moving forward, because the first 4 picks, let's hypothetically think about this. The first 4 picks are quarterbacks. You know that the Chargers have endless options of the best players available, which is what Joe Ortiz has ended up elaborating on. So that could even be Marvin Harrison Jr. That could be Malik Neighbors. That could be Brock Bowers. That could even be an offensive tackle. Whatever the case may be for the Chargers moving forward. If all of this selling pitch right now that there's going to be 4 quarterbacks taken in those first 4 picks, then they've got a great chance. They've got a great chance at it. So, and the other thing that he also mentioned, we want to add depth, and certainly there are some positions that we don't need, but like I said, you are 1 play away from needing a position. So if you look at it based on need, You're never one player away ever. And so you get a chance to have a great player. And so that's how we are going to approach it. So great game plan. Great game plan for the Chargers. I think it'll be interesting, but I would love to see what those movements are going to be. All right, so moving on, still sticking with the NFL. So, of course, the 12th pick right now is the Denver Broncos. Now, George Paton ended up announcing, and he ended up talking a little bit more about what their looks are for at least at quarterback. So the whole point of this is that they would want to find a long-term solution at quarterback in the first round, but the team's decision makers are saying they will not force it. So George Paton ended up going on to this comment, quoting, "One thing we know, we're going to get a really good player at 12. We've had teams call to move up. We've had teams call to move back. We have flexibility, but we do know at 12, if we stand pat, we'll get a really good player." So the whole point of it is that they are not in panic mode. And Sean Payton knows that he's had an awful lot he's had to deal with Denver since he's arrived there. Trying to get Russell Wilson to play his best. You've got Russ in Seattle, but in the end, it just didn't really work out after all of that. Now, the crazy part is the crazy part about the whole thing is that you look at with what the Broncos are potentially trying to get. They are going to need a quarterback either way. But remember, this quarterback draft is not going to be the same as the next year's quarterback class at all either, because this one has a ton. Next year's, not even close. So you got to make that serious decision. If you're going to end up taking that quarterback, which I do believe they should, but don't try to give up any more pivotal players that you know end up shaping your roster, because that's not going to be a good look either. So I think, to each his own on it, I think it'll be interesting to figure out what this will be moving forward, but I do think they are not in any sort of panic mode. I don't think there's anything that like the Broncos should honestly end up giving up, because if you give up Patrick Surtain, that is humongous. Then they're going to have to try this again. Then they're going to have to go and get a corner. So I think they have what they need to, and I don't think that they should honestly panic. Be in situational mode. Don't panic, and things may work out. All right, now, moving into the NHL, last story up on here. So the Pittsburgh Penguins had an upsetting, disappointing season, not making it into playoffs this year. So Sidney Crosby does have 1 year left on his 12-year, $104.4 million contract that he had with the Penguins. So now there's going to be potentially some contract extension talks. Crosby, who's turning 37 in August 7th, played 19 seasons with the Penguins after they selected him number 1 overall in 2005. Kyle Dubas in the middle of this is going to be very, very, very interesting. But Sidney Crosby went on and basically said this: "Obviously, I am going to talk to Kyle Dubas and have a conversation with him. We'll see. I think it's just something that I'll have conversations with him about. I think he should," Dubas ended up mentioning about this, "I think he should finish his career with the Pittsburgh Penguins. How long is that? I'm not going to put any limits on Sidney Crosby. He's capable of great things and is still performing at an extraordinary high level." So Sidney Crosby, in 82 games this season, posted 94 points, 42 goals, and 52 assists. And this was part of the spark in their late postseason run, which was about a little bit too late. But Sidney Crosby, arguably still playing at the highest level at 37, kind of tells you a lot. And again, the Penguins, I know, have to figure out this offseason next year because this is definitely an important offseason for Kyle Dubas. However, that he's going to end up shaping this roster because you've got Sidney Crosby you're thinking about, who's got 1 year left of his contract. You've got Geno Malkin. You got Chris Letang. You got Erik Karlsson. So there's some pieces that may end up getting moved because you've got to end up acquiring some capital. Because in the end, it's going to be contributing to Crosby's contract extension, possibly. It should also contribute to free agent signings, whomever is willing to want to play in Pittsburgh, because we know Pittsburgh is a very historic franchise for years and years and years. But Sidney Crosby, just like Alex Ovechkin, I see him retiring with the team. I don't see him really fitting anywhere else. He's never really had any of that. He's never really had any of those kinds of commotions run through his head. I think he's very sure. He's very clear when it comes to Pittsburgh. But remember, I'm a glass half full type guy. I'm not leaving anything out of this. But hopefully they could come to that decision and they could figure this out. Because in the end, Sidney Crosby's a great player. But I'm also thinking about Pittsburgh's future in the end. So it'll be interesting to see how the contract extension talks really are. But if they get a deal done, good for Sidney. Arguably still one of the best players. And eventually when he retires, he will be a first ballot Hall of Famer. No doubt in my mind at all. All right, well, there was your news.
This is the Hot Press.
All right, so the Arizona Coyotes won their final homestand game 5-2 against the Edmonton Oilers, and it meant a lot to the Arizona Coyotes. I feel bad for the fans and for the players. Arizona started their pivotal piece as hockey in the desert when they first arrived. And now I know Winnipeg was one organization who instilled the whiteout, all the rest of it. They still do. But Arizona was a completely different type of atmosphere. I feel bad for this because if this was a win in an NHL stadium, you kind of will get a little bit of a better feel. But because it was won in a hockey in a hockey arena that is conjoined with the local college, which is Arizona State, I just kind of felt bad for the fans on it. But the fans, all of them, gave their respects. Edmonton also gave them their respects. I think everyone in the league. By the way, forward Max Domi was very emotional on the press that he basically had. I'll pull it up for you guys, but I thought this was a very emotional moment. We all kind of knew that. And in the end, the Coyotes now are headed to Salt Lake City. Which, here's the thing. Okay, I understand it. I understand that they had to move the team. I understand that they basically had to do what they needed to basically help this organization out. But then in the end, it was eventually going to end up coming up this way. But I mean, you got to admit, this was a great ending. Loved it. I loved the fact that they were able to win at home, and not even just against any opponent, but it was against the Edmonton Oilers. Very, very competitive in every single way, shape, and form. But they have had an awful lot of history. So one of the things I'll bring up while I'm looking for this as well from Max Domi's comments on the Arizona Coyotes, because this is what started his career initially, was in Arizona, because he's been around guys like Shane Doan, also had been around multiple great players. But Arizona, the funny thing of this is they have not completely backed themselves out yet. So there is a chance that the Coyotes could be back. It's only until the right time really does kind of come around. So I'm optimistic on it. And we'll see what happens, but again, I think this will be a great thing for Salt Lake City. I'm excited about that. But you could tell from the players, you could tell from the fans, many of them know that this was coming, and not many of them are pretty much excited. So I understand. It sucks. And so at that point, I can't seem to find. Do we at least have it? Yeah, I can't seem to find the comment. Oh well. But yeah, Max Domi was very emotional about it. But he definitely expressed a lot about just what hockey was, in Phoenix, and also what it was like, playing in that organization, playing in, that town and that city in for the state of Arizona. So now Arizona now has, the Phoenix Suns, they've got the Arizona Cardinals, and then they've also got the Arizona Diamondbacks. So they've got teams. They're not in a position where, unlike Oakland, where they're losing everybody. But still, to this degree, it's relatively interesting how everything's going to pan out. But I'm sure, I mean, again, this was what we were waiting on for quite some time. The Coyotes, I wish they would have been a better organization all through and through, but unfortunately, because of the way everything kind of panned out for them, just didn't end up working in the end. So I wish all the best of luck for the team. I feel very, very hurt with the fans. I feel their pain and I feel their emotions. I mean, it sucks. But Arizona does have a 4-year window open to potentially keep themselves up in contention. So in case if there is a potential expansion, I think some people are expecting, they want to see the Atlanta Thrashers back. But if it comes to this point, people would probably want to see the Arizona Coyotes back. But they want to see them in a better arena. They want to see them with better care. So I think this thing with, with Salt Lake City is going to be a great thing. The Jazz owner, by the way, really, really does love his teams. Loves the Jazz, takes great care of the players, and is very a down-to-earth guy. So I'm excited about the opportunity, and we'll see. We'll see what it comes down to. There's still names right now that are being submitted. We'll see exactly how all this pans out. But, yep, it's official. Congrats to the Coyotes on their last win of the season. And thank you for all the memories in the desert, is all we got to say. Thank you all for the memories. And we will see you guys soon, depending on when that window, it still remains open. We will be there. All right, so here on the bottom half of the hour, as promised, of course, with the Stanley Cup playoffs heating up, and as we are getting ready to roll this weekend, I've got my picks here for the Stanley Cup playoffs. I'm excited about this. So it's going to be a little bit different, but I'm very confident that this is what we are going to be expecting. So here we go now with our Stanley Cup playoff prediction. So, showcasing it up from here, you've got Dallas against Vegas. You've got Winnipeg against Colorado. You got Vancouver against Nashville. Oilers against the Kings. Florida against Tampa. Boston against Toronto. The Rangers against Caps. And then you've got the Hurricanes against the Islanders. So here's what I've got at least in the first round. So this first round, here's how I have it set. So let's start with Dallas and Vegas. So Vegas has won 3 games against Dallas this season. However, injuries have been decimating this team, and then not to mention inconsistencies. I don't think that we've gotten the exact same Aiden Hill as we did a year ago when Vegas was on that run, but they will still play to their strengths. I think this will be a 7-game series, but I think Dallas hits the last laugh and the reign is over. And I think Dallas ends up winning through up on this series. I'm going to take the Stars. Now, Winnipeg and Colorado, forgive me, Colorado fans, on this. I know they're all going to be probably coming for my head or whatever. But Winnipeg, surprisingly, has had Colorado's number when it comes to offense and when it comes to defense. I think this will be a 7-game series as well. These two are going to get so wore out, but I think Connor Hellebuck is a man on a mission, and I honestly do think that the Jets have just that amount that they could possibly get past Colorado, but Colorado's got to win games on the road. I don't know if they're going to be able to win that many. It might be a little too late. I may take this in 7, and I think Winnipeg will move on. Now, Vancouver and Nashville, I see this being a 6-game series. Nashville, they did play on some good hockey, but as far as their goaltending position, that's one that's really going to be questionable for me. I would take Vancouver in 6 to move on. But the Nashville Predators are going to give them some fits. They're probably going to end up giving them a little bit of a taste of the medicines in some areas. But I think Vancouver, they'll be good enough to win a series, but they'll be there in the second round. And finally, Edmonton and the Kings. Oh, God. The Oilers are going to end up blowing the Kings out. I don't say this is a sweep. I think this will be about a 5-6-game series. But I just think that the offensive overload is going to be too much for the Kings. And like I said, I thought it would have been either Vegas or LA that the Oilers were going to end up playing them. But at this point, go ahead. Get yourselves red hot by the start of it. And so I think the Oilers do in 5 or 6 games. And they'll move on, and that's where my second round in the West is. Now, first round in the East, I've got the Florida Panthers getting the Tampa Bay Lightning's number in 6 games because Florida does have a lot of depth on offense. What they were missing last season, they're coming into a very, very strong role. I think Florida, they want to get back into the Cup really badly. I see them moving on and giving Tampa a lot of fits, and they go to the second round. Now, Boston and Toronto, man, Toronto is just unlucky up to this point because Boston has had their number for years. In like the last, I would say in like the last 6-7 seasons, Boston has found ways to just torture the Maple Leafs. And so I think Boston moves on in 6 games. I mean, I will get intensity. I will get effort from the Toronto Maple Leafs, but it's the same old thing. It just kind of feels like Toronto is almost like the Dallas Cowboys, in my opinion. But they get unlucky, and I think, honestly, the Bruins, they take it in 6, and they move on. Rangers and Capitals, this for sure was one year that Washington had to punch into the playoffs, but I think they get knocked out in 6 games against the Rangers because New York is just that hyperly aggressive on offense. And Igor Shesterkin has really been playing quality goaltending. And never forget, Jacob Trouba, the captain, plays quality defense, sets the tone. And I think the Rangers have initially all the pieces, all the expenses for Peter Laviolette. And he proved me wrong this year. Peter Laviolette really shaped up a lot of this quality defense. But I'm also getting hyper-aggressive scoring offense in the same boat. best of both worlds. I think the Rangers move on in 6. And then finally, the Canes and the Isles. I think the Hurricanes get business done in 6. The New York Islanders were playing really, really good hockey as of late. But if you look at a lot of the options that the Carolina Hurricanes have, it's endless. They've got a lot of really good scoring options. They got a lot of really good defensive specialists that are there. And the goaltending to me is going to be about above average, but it's going to give you at the very least a jump and a boost. And I think the Hurricanes, they move on in 6 against the Islanders. So as of now, I've got the Stars against the Jets, Canucks against the Oilers, Panthers against the Bruins, Rangers against the Hurricanes. Now, in this next round, here's what I've got now moving on to the conference finals. So in this one between Dallas and the Jets, this will definitely be a back and forth game between the two of them, but I think Dallas does get the job done in 6 games against Winnipeg. I just feel like, Dallas, they've utilized offense very, very well. They're big on defense to a core, but I think, honestly, Jake Ottinger, if you're looking at the Western Conference outside of Connor Hellebuck, he's got to be the second best goaltender in this playoff because he's been playing solid goaltending now for the last couple of years, and he's really come into his own groove. So I have Dallas moving on in 6 games, taking down the Jets. Now, the Canucks and the Oilers, like I said, I think the Canucks are good enough to win a series, but I don't think they'll be that good as far as their depth in the playoffs. I have them getting eliminated by the Oilers in 6 because the Edmonton Oilers are on a mission. They want to get back into the Western Conference Finals and finish things. So, and they've got a very good hyper offense, really good at scoring. I think this honestly will prove the deal that the Oilers want to be in this position. So, Western Conference Finals is going to be Dallas and the Oilers. Now let's go to the other side, Florida and Boston. Even though as much as my heart is with the Boston Bruins, Florida just has that kind of capability, and I think that's going to be a great toe-to-toe matchup. I see that one going at 7, and I think the Florida Panthers give a lot of fits to the Boston Bruins, and they move on this one. Now, Florida, they're going to utilize everybody. Vladimir Tarasenko's been really good. Kyle Okposo, since they've arrived, they've been playing very, very well. But there also are other offensive options from Connor Verhaeghe, Matthew Tkachuk, Alexander Barkov. This offense is loaded. So that's why I think Florida is in a really good position. And Paul Maurice, he's going to find ways to outsmart the Bruins. Finally, the Rangers and the Canes. I personally think this will be a 7-game series, and I'm going to give it to the New York Rangers. This is a team that is on a mission, a team that, honestly, yes, President's Trophy winners, they are the team that's going to be the outliers of what the President's Trophy pressure has been for years. Nobody's won the Stanley Cup since 2013, since the Chicago Blackhawks has done it when they were President's Trophy winners. So to me, I think the Rangers are the outlier. They're going to win this series in 6. And I've got Florida and New York in the Eastern Conference Final. Now, onward to potentially play for Sir Stanley. I've got the Dallas Stars beating the Edmonton Oilers in 7. It is going to be a crash course series. But I think when you're facing a really good surging offense against a very tough defensive core, that is going to be a hell of a series for 7 games. But I do believe in this. Situational defenses always do come in clutch all the time. And I think the Dallas Stars have exactly those defensive pieces. I see this to where Pete DeBoer is trying to prove a point, and the Dallas Stars punch their ticket in to the Stanley Cup final. Now, Florida Panthers and the New York Rangers. As much as I really do like the Florida Panthers trying to get in, 7-game series as well, I say this honestly takes us to New York. I think the Rangers have just about the firepower. I think they have just about the depth. And, I mean, they match up very well against the Panthers. Make no mistake. But I do think this is a very, very tough type of playoff run. And I think that the Florida Panthers, they're going to get wore out with at least 7 games. Because, again, it's just like when you're watching a UFC or a boxing match. You got to be able to last through 12 rounds. You got to last through 5. If you're not willing to last through 7 and you get exposed, you're in trouble. So I think the Florida Panthers, they get the best out of them. And I think the Rangers end up moving on and they go to the Stanley Cup Finals. So I got Dallas and the New York Rangers. You will be surprised what my result will be. There you go. Stanley Cup champions. I have a really good feeling it's going to be the New York Rangers this season. I just think of this for many, many ways. And I think that the Rangers have exactly the kind of core, and it's going to be very surprising for a lot of people. This will be a 7-game series for sure between the two of them, because I just think that New York's hyper-aggressive offense and their situational defenses will be really interesting all in the long run. But I've got the New York Rangers winning this thing. Many people don't believe in this. That's fine. But I mean, hey, let's party like it's 1994, right? When Mark Messier hoisted the cup for the first time in New York Rangers history. This is really going to be an interesting year. Yeah. You best believe it that, I mean, you know, the New York Rangers, in my opinion, they've been playing solid hockey now for like the last few games, and they've been coming into their own very, very well. Now, again, I'm not taking anything away from a lot of other teams like the Oilers, the Golden Knights, the Jets. There were so many different teams this year. This is why it's such a stacked NHL Stanley Cup playoff. I mean, I'm getting really, really good teams this year. Compared to the last few seasons we've had, I've got really good teams. And notice how we don't necessarily have a Cinderella story this much, but what I'm getting is I'm getting quality offenses. I'm getting quality defenses. I'm getting really good coaching because, again, elite coaching is very, very important, which is why that, like, when you look at a lot of these coaches, look at them, Bruce Cassidy, Paul Maurice, Pete DeBoer, Jared Bednar, Peter Laviolette, I think, has gotten into that. He's gotten into that category. Jim Montgomery and Rick Bowness. There's a lot of really good coaches in this. I think having the quality coach means a lot. It means everything to them. The Kings, I've got knocked out in the first round because they were a mess. They got on fire. They fired their coach. They then go back to themselves. But that's a lot. That's a lot of movement. I just don't really see them being that kind of team that will get them over the top. So there's lots of those stories from there, but I think it's going to be clear. I think the New York Rangers have exactly what it takes to end up winning the Stanley Cup. I do. I really do. All right, folks. Well, it's time for me to wrap up this week. Thank you guys all for joining me here all throughout the week. Do not miss out next week. You want to know why? Because the moment we've been waiting for, NFL Draft Week. I am really excited about it, folks. I cannot wait to finally be sitting up on that couch watching the NFL Draft. All of the future's best waiting to be called. And we'll see where their destiny lies. I'm not going to be doing a show on Thursday because that's day one. I'm going to be sitting all through it. But Monday, I may have a guest. I've got my I got my third and final mock draft. I'm excited about it. Cannot wait to showcase it with you guys. But tune in next week, NFL Draft Week, here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, live on Roku, iHeartRadio, and all of your social medias where you can like, follow, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to keep you up to date on the show. Appreciate you guys for hanging out with me here this week. Jake Silva signing off. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Those of you who are around in the Denver area, be careful of the snow this weekend. It's going to be crazy. I know I'm definitely going to be batting down the hatches when the snow starts coming down. But stay safe, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care, guys.